Hello, this is Susan Cousino. This is the office hour for Oregon State University PDC-PRO summer 2023. This is call number 5, and the next lesson due is assignment 5 on September 4th. Hello, I don't have anybody showing up, which is fine. I just wanted to go over a few notes for this upcoming assignment, which is the water assignment. So I'm going to do share screen here on the notes that are in the student document page, the Google Doc. Okay, so you're going to want to go down to Zoom call number 5. So I just made some general notes here, which you can find, most of these notes here in the assignment instructions, but I just wanted to highlight a few specific points. Okay, so first off, you've got a break coming up. Congratulations, you're almost halfway through the course. And so the break is going to be Monday, September 11th to Sunday, September 24th. It's a good time to catch up on assignments. Start on assignment 6 once you've submitted assignment 5. And keep in mind that your soil test, which will be part of assignment 6, can take like a few days to a week, especially if you've got a lot of clay in your soil. Some students actually find that theirs don't settle out really at all, or they stay kind of a little bit cloudy. And that can be part of like the calcium magnesium balance. If you've got very dispersive soils, they tend to kind of explode when they get wet. Just the way it is. And if that's what you've got after you're letting your jar test sit for a few days, that's what you've got. Oh, and don't forget to use the detergent on that assignment. So that's applying for assignment 6. So just disregard that for assignment 5, but I just want to note it because it's really good for students to get started on that as early as possible. And if you're caught up on assignments already, during the break is a good time to do that. It's also a good time to go back over any assignments that you wanted to improve. Like if you missed a large section of an assignment, like say like a whole survey, or you're like missing like 6 to 8 points on the assignment, that's a good time to catch up and then send me a message and let me know that you did that, and I'll mark it. I'll make sure to get it marked. So I'll mark it in my calendar to mark it in your assignment, your student grader, and get that updated. The next thing on the calendar to keep note of, or to be aware of, your lesson 5 peer review is posted as September 8th because the break is from 11th to 24th. So normally your peer review would be a full week after your assignment was due, so it would be on the 11th. Because it's on the break, you're going to get the announcement on the Friday, which will be September 8th. So just do your peer review whenever you're ready, whenever you're finished with lesson 5. I'm going to ask that if you haven't submitted your assignment yet, don't go and do your peer review until you've done that, because what happens is I get a notification that you've submitted an assignment as soon as you've posted in the discussion. And so then if you haven't actually submitted your assignment, then I'm opening up your presentation and I'm going to look and I'm like, oh, have you actually updated anything? I have to look in your speed grader. It's not really clear that you've only made a comment until I kind of make sure and go do a little bit of digging. So please just make sure that you're doing your peer review after you've done your assignment for that lesson. Okay, so your next Zoom call is going to be September 5th, or September 25th, pardon me. So that will be the Monday following the break. So you get a long break and then a Zoom call, and then your next assignment is due October 2nd, and that will be assignment 6. So you've got a good long time. You've got the full 2 weeks to get caught up on any assignments that you've fallen behind on. If you need to ask me questions, I'll be somewhat available. We're going to be taking a family trip. I've got a bunch of other work lined up, so I'm going to be intermittently available. I won't be doing any Zoom calls or office hours, but you can reach out to me via email or through my Voxer. I'm going to say, reach out by email or Voxer. Here's my code again. Okay. All right, so for this upcoming assignment, it's the water assignment. So your water survey, watershed, and there's another piece called that. I'm sorry, I'm noting on my other screen. I always forget what the names are. Each site water flow. There we go. Okay. So first off, the water survey, just keep in mind some things you might not have because we've got a huge diversity of students. You may not have a well. If you don't have a well, just put not applicable, don't put no well, or remove, remove references to a well. That's fine. If you do have a well, you get some data on like what your water pressure is, so gallons per minute, it's GPM. How much that varies. Like if you tend to run out of water by the end of the summer, put that. So any notes about that. If you tend to have water quality issues, if you've ever had a water quality test done in your well, that's helpful to include. In terms of municipal water, if you have it, great. I mean, not necessarily great. Give the name of the water service if you can. So for instance, our city of Camarillo has 3 different water services for the one city. So we're served, for instance, by Camarillo Water Services. I think that's the name of it. Anyway, so find out what the specific water service is. Any information you can get, like there's 3 main tanks which tend to collect water from different sources. And that serves our particular neighborhood. Record rainfall data can be very difficult to find. You may not be able to find like a 100-year event or even a 50 or 20-year event. Find, see what you can for your area. Find anything like of note, like, hey, there was like a huge flooding event, in 1992 or something like that. Like anything interesting to do with that, what's happening in terms of water on your site. And then again, your SWOT analysis is going to be specific to water flows, water quantity, water patterns on your site or that influence your site. Okay, the watershed practice assignment. This one trips up some students every time, every run. So complete the practice sheet. It's worth a point as it is, not based on your property. So you're not swapping out the topo map of your property and doing that assignment. You're just completing the practice assignment. So every student in the course, their practice sheet should look pretty much the same. And that's basically just to show us that you know how to like complete that exercise. And if you're using a whole bunch of different topo maps, then we can't tell that as easily. So we just have a stock topographic map to work from, so for you to go through that practice assignment. The instructions I think are pretty clear in the discussion. But if you have any questions, let me know. Micro and macro watershed boundaries, they can vary a bit, will vary. It's subjective. So like, what's your macro watershed? Well, for instance, if you could be in the Yuba River watershed. You might be in the upper Yuba River, lower Yuba River, middle Yuba River. You may be on a sub creek, like for instance, I was just working on a project that has Outlet Creek, Trinity River is their sub watershed. So what I would do in that case is your macro watershed is going to be, for instance, the Yuba River. The Yuba River is also huge. So then you'll probably be able to find or look for a map that has an inset of your specific, sub watershed, something that shows like the creek, or the local stream or like a small river that contributes to that main watershed. So like, but in contrast, like these are all fractals, right? So in contrast, like the Columbia River watershed is enormous. It goes from like southern British Columbia all the way down into, I believe it's southern Colorado, but definitely like into Oregon. So that's like kind of too big to be super useful. You could use it as reference to like, look how big this watershed is in which you are a part, but try to like make that like the super macro, and then go down to like kind of a meso, like a regionally specific watershed, and then the watershed that like really specifically impacts, like if you guys had a lot of like mud flow off of your site, which creek would that drain into, might be a good question to ask. So, and it's going to vary a little bit for everybody. So if you have any questions here, reach out to me, because this is one that some students get stuck on, because it's like it is subjective. It depends on what your topography is like to some extent, and also how much geographic data we have about your specific watershed, your region. And so it's fine to take images from county maps, state maps. That's totally expected. The micro watershed, you want to identify water flowing onto your site. So for instance, a local ridge line down to the creek it drains into. That creek may be off of your property. Quite often there's like a ridge line above your property, or maybe at the top of your property boundary, and it drains into something that is actually like further, you know, thinking further down, but further south or further, it's off of your lower property boundary, and that's fine. So you want to show both of those because that's your micro watershed, because all of that water is potentially either influencing or influenced by what goes on your site. So think about showing where a drop of water would land. If it landed on the highest point in your property, where it would end up draining to, and think about what watershed would capture that. Now, in municipal water, in municipal areas, that's going to get really simplified. So it might be, like for instance, we have a ridge here, and then everything basically goes down into the storm drain that's below our house. So that kind of ends up being our micro watershed. We could show the stream that it drains into. I would have to take another look at what that watershed is, but really like showing the ridge that's across the street from our house, includes the houses above our site. And then the storm drain below at the bottom edge of our property would probably be enough. So just keep in mind that it's a little bit plastic. You can, you know, it's like discretionary. You can, you know, use your own judgment to decide what that's going to include. Look at different examples in the templates to get an idea of like, oh, my site is like mostly like this. I'm going to go with kind of this example. That's fine. Again, just keep in mind that like you're telling a story, and just make sure your story makes sense to somebody, and that you can like help it make sense to me as your grader. So okay, and then the difference between a watershed boundary and a basin. Again, this gets students hung up. It's actually really simple. If you've identified the boundary, you've identified the basin. Think about the difference between a perimeter, which is just the line going around it, and an area, which is the actual basin itself. So that's all the notes that I've got in here. Actually, there are some previous questions. Let me stop the share. Oh, so I'm going to share screen. I'm going to share to my Notion page for this site. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to bring this over onto my main screen so that I'm looking at you instead of looking off to the side. Okay, so this is what the Notion. Oh, I didn't want to close this. When you go to the office hour calls page, there's a link in that student document. If whenever you see a link to Notion, that's what this is. You're going to end up kind of in this ecosystem. But so for lesson 5, I've got the rubric. I've got a few questions that students have previously asked that you might apply to your situations. I try to keep them so they're fairly general. So I try to remove like anything that's really, really specific. But you might just have to scan through those and find if you have something if there's anything of interest. I do generally keep these in the document, but I find the document just gets really unwieldy and difficult to follow. So if you're interested, you've got a little bit extra time, feel free to poke around in the Notion page. And then for each section, I've included the instructions from the assignment. So there, I hope that helps. Let me see. Started so 10:45. Yeah, okay, so I don't have anybody showing up, which is totally fine. I hope you guys are all doing great. I mean, I've got a little bit of marking left to do, but otherwise it looks like folks are doing just fine. And I'll see your assignments coming next week, and then I think we're all probably looking forward to a little break. Okay, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.